there legally. And yeah, maybe you're not making the best decisions, but at least you were abiding by the law by being in the bar.
Unfortunately, what we are doing is not that much different from what our parents and government officials were doing. However, what we're doing is considered illegal. It feels silly telling you we're actively breaking the law, but it's a hard truth that must be told.
Today, Tia, Lynn, Mitch, and I come to the town board meeting to talk about the drinking age. Now, as you already know both sides to the story, as a friends, family, and local government, we'd like to talk to you about the drinking age and how it should be lowered to lower than 21.
Many factors contribute to this thought that we have, from the history of the drinking age to maturity or drinking and driving and other factors that are involved.
In order to have a successful proposal for change, it is important to make the history of the subject known. Prior to Prohibition, there really wasn't a minimum drinking age in the United States. Most states didn't have a minimum drinking age. And although it's hard to find hard facts on alcohol abuse or drinking and driving accidents or alcohol-related accidents, we all still made it here today, so it couldn't have been that bad. In the 1920s, the 18th Amendment was passed, which prohibited the consumption and the buying of alcohol, otherwise known as Prohibition. Ironically enough, that this had a more adverse effects than positive ones, and violence increased, the black market grew exponentially, and overall criminal activity increased. This is what happens when you take alcohol away from the people. Violence increases, black market grows larger, and that's what's happening with the people under 21. Violence is increasing, the black market is increasing every fake ID that we purchase, and criminal activity is increasing every sip of alcohol that we take. In 1933, the Prohibition was repealed by the 21st Amendment. And from this point on to like the late 60s, the drinking age in most states was 21. As you can see here, the red indicates the 21. Mind you that the voting age at this time was 21, and the age of majority at this time was 21. Then in 1971, the voting age changed to 18, and that is thought to be the #1 influencer in the drinking age changing to 18. And as you can see here, in 1972, the red greatly reduces, and the blues and purples is 18 through 20. Then, drinking and driving became an issue, more around the 80s rather than the 60s and 70s. Then President Reagan, he proposed the Minimum Drinking Age Act, which demanded that all states increase the drinking age to 21. The funny thing is, if states didn't raise their drinking age to 21, they would be faced with a 10% federal highway funding cut. So it's really important to analyze that, although obviously this act was to promote safety, you have to analyze the morality of the state's decisions. Did they too want to increase safety, or did they just not want to face the 10% federal highway funding cut? So that brings us to today, where the drinking age is 21, and the scientific, moral, and political argument is argued once again.
Now, drinking affects everyone, and Eddie's story is a little bit closer to us than a lot of people may realize. Eddie Coombs was a lacrosse player here at Marist College, and on August 6, 2011, Eddie and a couple of friends were at a house, and they were drinking. They were under 21, but they were mature enough to make the decision not to drive home. Unfortunately, someone that they counted on, who was not 21, was also drinking, drove home, and killed Eddie and his two friends on the way home. Now, drinking affects everyone. Every day we are reminded of this at practice. Every day Mr. Coombs is reminded of this at home. Every day the man who killed Eddie is reminded of this as he sits there and ponders about what he could have done to change that. And drinking affects everyone. His hometown, the lacrosse community, everyone here at Marist College is reminded of that.
By a show of hands, who here has their license or permit? By a show of hands, who can legally drink a beer? Okay, well, in the United States, you have to be the age of 16 to drive a car and 21 to legally drink. In Europe, you you have to be 18 to drive and 16 to drink. As the stat here shows from mad.com, Europe has less than half the fatalities that the United States has with drinking and driving. 86% of other countries are less than 21, which leaves us one of the highest age requirements to drink legally. This is because with the age of 21, this does not give us the confidence as a drinker to understand how it feels to be drunk and drive a car. Whereas in Europe, they understand how it feels like to be drunk before being able to drive a car, which makes them less likely to get behind the wheel after drinking. Now, in 2008, back on Long Island, on the Meadowbrook Highway about 2 a.m., Martin Heidegen was coming home from his girlfriend's house after drinking. He was on the wrong side of the highway when he crashed into a limousine service who was coming home from their family's wedding. The driver, Stanley Rabinowitz, who was 59, died, as well as Katie Flynn, who was a 7-year-old flower girl from the party. Martin was 24 years old, and now, because of this, has killed 2 people and will be in prison for the rest of his life because of the decision to drink and drive.
So drinking and driving has definitely had an impact on my life, as has an impact on yours as well. So let's go back to 2009. I'm in my mom's friend's restaurant, Fiore del Sol in Floral Park area near Queens. I'm at a fundraiser. I'm having a good time hanging out with some of my friends, my family friends. My parents are having a good time. When suddenly we check the TV and I hear a loud screech from a woman. The woman jolts out the door, and I look to the corner to see where it came from, and all I see is her husband staring at a TV, watching this right here. The husband and wife had given their kids to the husband's sister for the day, and it had turned out she had been drinking and driving, drove 2 miles down the wrong side of the Taconic Parkway, 2 miles down the wrong side of the Taconic Parkway, got in an accident, killing their 3 little daughters. The woman who did this was named Diane Schuler. She was 36 years old. In this case, the drinking age has nothing to do with the accident that happened. This goes to show that in addition to responsibility with kids and drinking that are now newly legal, it's inevitable that drinking and driving will happen. The woman who did this was 36 years old and will forever regret the fact that she had made this decision. So carrying into that, I want to talk about maturity. So, like Ralph said, all of you have your permit or license. So I want to ask you, what would you do right now if you were just given a house? I mean, you're not financially stable enough to own a house right now by yourself, pay the bills. It just wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't be able to do it. Right now, you're given army fatigues. You're being sent off in the army. You have to fend for your life. You're fighting for your country. You have a gun in hand. There's people out there trying to kill you. Can you handle that? You've been given a baby. An adoption service gives you a baby right now. You're juggling school, possibly a job. Can you handle a baby as well? Well, whether you can or cannot, under the law, they say you can because you're 18. At age 18, you can buy property, you can enlist in the army, and you can adopt a child while at 18. But what if I just gave you a beer or a glass of wine? Do you think you could be able to handle that one beer or glass of wine? Whether you can or cannot, the law says you cannot because you have to be 21. So Professor Nell and Anastasia would be able to under the constraints of the law, but not the rest of you. So maturity. Okay. So when is the brain considered fully mature? They used to think that the brain was fully matured in the mid to late teen years. but due to modern studies, this is shown not to be true. Although it is difficult to find out when the brain is actually fully matured, research done by MIT Young Adult Development Project, University of Rochester Medical Center, and the National Institute of Mental Health all have done research showing that the brain develops at an average age of 25. The reason it is an average age is because brain development is subject to individual variation. This means some will fully mature slightly before the age of 25, some after, but the consensus is that 25 is about the average age at which your brain will fully mature. So, drinking before full development of the brain can have lasting impacts and changes in your brain. Things that this can affect is motor coordination, your sleep, your mood, other various cognitive or learning functions, and even your learning or memory skills. So, and your homies, okay. So keep in mind, the minimum legal drinking age is 21, and the average age of maturity is 25. So even within the legal constraints of the law, we're all drinking about 4 years before our brain is fully mature. So as we keep preaching that drinking before the age of 18 can have brain impacts, drinking at the legal age right now can still have impacts on your life. Therefore, to avoid all health risks, drinking age should be around 25 or even greater if we don't want to have any brain impacts. Imagine that. So alcohol in other countries. Here are some examples of drinking ages in other countries. As Ralph had said, in these countries where the drinking age is 18 or lower, accidents actually are no more than the United States, if anything less. A part of this, based on research done by Indiana University and Dartmouth University, is that the kids get a more sense of responsibility by being able to drink at a younger age. This involves drinking at meals. Alcohol at meals is a lot bigger festivity in Europe and other countries than it is here. I believe this is extremely beneficial because, again, like Ralph said, it teaches kids the responsibility of juggling alcohol in their system and decisions like driving and other social activities. Ethics. So as I mentioned, you can have a house, you can enlist in the army and put your life on the line to fight for your country, and you can even have a baby. But you can't, at the end of the day, after juggling one or all of those, have a glass of wine or a can of beer. Many kids break the rules nowadays based on even the current prohibition we have in place in our country. And like factors like Mitch said with fake IDs and drinking at an underage, I believe that lowering the drinking age can teach responsibility to the kids of our country and lower accidents such as drinking and driving, as I mentioned.
So there are going to be 3 areas of negatives that come with the drinking age that I'm going to talk about today. Fake IDs, fear of calling law enforcement, and private or binge drinking. A study conducted by the U.S. National Library of Medicine in 2007, they took 3,700 students who were about to go to college and asked if each one of them had a fake ID. 12.5% said yes. By their sophomore year, they were asked the same question, and 35.2% said yes. That's a 23% increase in just a year and a half. And that's in 2007. Those stats are swayed in some ways. Some schools may have more fake IDs, some schools may have less. But this is a general consensus that in a year and a half, 23% of students have an increase of fake IDs. And these aren't bad kids. These are kids just wanting to get a drink because the drinking age is 21. In trouble with the law? In Iowa in 2011, the Department of Transportation conducted a study and realized that in 6 months, they took 1,700 fake IDs away from college students at the University of Iowa. 6 months, one state, 1,700 tickets. Now some of us may wonder, why are the cops wasting so much time on college students who are drinking, not really minding their own business, when there are more important laws being broken or worse things happening than just having a fake ID? And some people may not know the consequences of having a fake ID. A lot of people may say, what's the big deal? It's a fake ID, everyone has one. I just wanted to get a drink. And of course, everyone's seen it. Some people joke around about having a fake ID. They want to be cool, they want to be older. But there's a lot of things that go into a fake ID. Some states have a minimum of a $500 to $700 fine, and it's a misdemeanor. In other cases, take having a fake ID a lot more seriously, and it is known as a felony, and you may serve up to prison time. Like I said before, these kids do not realize the impact of having a fake ID. They do not realize that they may be sent to jail, they may ruin the rest of their lives just for this one little document. And ever since 2001, after September 11th, fake IDs have become a lot more serious. Crimes have become a lot more involved with having a fake ID, and cops take it a lot more seriously, and they may seem like, oh, it's the bad guy, what are they doing? But everything has to be taken seriously, especially with all the terrorist acts going on. And also, now, there's a lot of binge drinking because of this 21 age.
I want to put something into perspective for you. Carson's story. Carson was a timid and accomplished 18-year-old fresh into college. And in order to get more accustomed to the college life and make friends, he joined a fraternity. And as most people know, you have to go through an initiation. And so he had to go through this. And Carson's friends on an interview were saying that he wasn't really a big drinker, a big partier, so when he said he was going to join the frat, they were kind of surprised. But on the night of December 2nd, 2008, he had no choice but to be a big drinker and a big partier. Two of the frat brothers were compelled Carson and a few other pledge members to drink excessive amounts of alcohol. And as most people when they drink, his demeanor started to change. His posture started to slump, his eyes became glossy, his words became slurred. But then there was a change completely. He all of a sudden was mentally not there anymore. His posture was completely slumped, his eyes were glossy, he started to drool, he couldn't speak. And that's when the frat brothers knew that they were in trouble. So they picked Carson up and put him in the car. And they had intentions of going to the hospital. But then they realized, our frat's gonna get in trouble, we're gonna get in trouble, Carson's gonna get in trouble, he's underage. So instead of driving him to the hospital, they took him out of the car, put him in their bedroom on his side with the garbage can, and left him there. They went on, they enjoyed themselves at the party, everybody just kind of forgot about Carson's condition, they just were having a good time. And then finally the frat brothers went to go to sleep, and they saw that Carson was not alive anymore. He was dead in their bed. He died of acute alcohol poisoning. His BAC was 4.0, which is 5 times the legal limit. Carson died because of people's fear of getting in trouble. Because they were afraid to go to the officials, because they were afraid to go to the hospital, Carson is no longer with us.
Tia mentioned my second point. People are afraid to call law enforcement, and someone always pays the price when that happens. It starts as a cycle. Drinking age is 21. Kids are going to drink underage, it's a given. Something is going to go wrong. No matter what, there's always a situation where something goes wrong. There's going to be a fear of getting in trouble. People don't want to be the one to get in trouble for having a drink under 21. I'm going to get in trouble. My parents are going to ground me. No one calls law enforcement, and someone pays the price, as Mattia mentioned. Getting in trouble for drinking under 21 is a lot better than a best friend dying or killing someone else. I think that it's very important to realize, and I think that it's something that people are afraid of, and if the drinking age was lowered, we would not have to deal with this. And also, drinking in privacy leads to binge drinking. If public facilities were open to kids that were under 21, binge drinking would be less impactful on people's lives. In a study done, 60.3% of full-time college students have a drink, and 40% of those people are binge drinkers. Now, binge drinking is a situation where you have 5 or more drinks in one sitting. And take that's 66% of all college drinkers, and 66% of all college students are less than 21. So there's your binge drinking right there. If we avoid that, and if we take that away, binge drinking goes away. Less healthy acts of drinking go away, and we're creating a more stable and sturdy environment for people to drink. A lot of issues arise because of drinking. There are more deaths from alcohol poisonings. there are more assaults and stupid acts being done, and there are more sexual assaults and criminal acts being taken away from this.
So if you look at the historical perspective, this studies on maturity and age, and the comparisons of alcohol-related deaths and accidents, we feel that the drinking age of 19 is a much more, if not effective, much more effective than the current drinking age of 21. Personally, I am 19 years old, and I know that I am responsible enough to handle alcohol. I work 40 hours a week, and I go to school full time, and I do believe that I deserve a drink every now and then.
So looking at our arguments that we have made today, we would like you to go out and not be timid and not be shy and let others know about this. We want to really encourage the local law enforcement on the state and the federal level to lower the drinking age to 21. And remember, keep calm and lower the MLDA.